Over the years, I've drastically changed my outlook on certain modifications, almost all of which has to do with me living in Atlanta. For now, here are 5 car mods I no longer hate. Louvers. I mentioned these last video, but I'm going to mention them here again. Louvers were originally designed to keep sunlight from glaring on your rear window, but as time went on, people found a myriad of other uses. The most important one is that they helped mid-engine cars cool better, as they allow gaps in the glass instead of just a solid glass window. As for front-engine cars, they still had uses, such as helping AC run more efficiently by reducing cabin temps. Louvers have now become a staple in today's modding community. What was originally written off by me as a tacky piece of nostalgia meant to be left in the 70s, I now find its way onto my own freaking vehicle, and honestly, I like it, for the sake of style and for privacy, and I also appreciate the lower cabin temps. Because unlike windshield sunshades, you can't keep those on the car while it's driving. Meanwhile with Louvers, you actually can. So you get the benefit of having a covered rear window even when the car's on the move. Something I learned to appreciate when I moved down in the south. I don't really care much for these when I am back in Indiana, and everyone thinks I look like a ricer with them. In the south, I have tons of respect. I finally understand why someone who lives in hot climates would genuinely install Louvers. And even aside from that, like I said, they're great for privacy. And they don't really affect visibility nearly as much as you would think, because the way the blinds are designed, their angle of approach from the outside is designed to prevent sunlight from bleeding in, but the angle of approach from the inside outwards still allows the driver to see out. If I had to describe it, whenever you look at your rear view mirror, think of like looking out blinds in your house. Like just look out the window if you have a set of blinds wherever you live. You can still identify objects, your neighbor's mailbox, their cat, the color of their car, and rather clearly too. It's not just like minor details. It's that same extent on a car. It really just appears as thin slits in your view. It really doesn't bother your visibility that much. People act like louvers are the most challenging thing and make your car nigh unusable, which could be argued for the next mod on the list. So the next mod on the list does render some cars nigh unusable, which is stance. Now, the original purpose of stance, which in this case we're talking about slight negative camber, it was designed for race cars to help them corner better, because when their tires were cambered outwards and they go through really intense G-force scenarios where they're really pushing through the corners, the way physics works is that when their tires are bent outwards, it really helps their rubber have a big contact patch as the car is being pushed down into the ground, whereas if the tires were just still vertically and perfectly straight, they wouldn't get as much of a contact patch. Now, logically speaking, using that same physics, you're probably thinking, doesn't that affect their straight line speed though? And you're absolutely correct, it did come with a sacrifice of them being slower in straight lines. But this was a very minor loss, especially if you're building the car for the situation, as a lot of race cars had adjustable suspension anyways. So if they're on a racetrack that is really corner heavy versus straights, they're gonna stance themselves out more. If they're on a straight track that has way more speed oriented, long wavy turns as opposed to tight hairpins, they're probably still gonna keep their car a lot less negative. If so, they may just keep the wheels completely straight. However, like everything else we do with things in the modern world, people just take things, especially certain concepts, and just exaggerate them to hell and back, and that's basically what modern camber is. That's what modern stance culture has become. The stance street cars of today have very little in common with the original stance cars of the past. While I do not hate them, the most notable change that I can definitely sympathize with why people do hate them still is that it's just for appearance. Its entire philosophy has flipped. This is something that is basically style over speed, period. If you're running like negative 23 camber, I don't care how much horsepower you're pushing, your car would go so much faster if it didn't have that much camber. Now keep in mind, I don't hate this mod. Like I said, it's on this video of mods I no longer hate, but I also do not love it. This is the mod that to this day escapes any sort of philia or fondness for me, because I still look at them and I'm just like, you know, congratulations. I don't hate them out of being exposed to them on a constant basis in Atlanta. In Indy, I hated them because I never saw that many of them. But as I saw more and more, I just got used to it, so it bothered me less. But bothering me less still isn't winning in my heart. But you guys do you. Now, the main style benefits that we should talk about while we're on the topic is that stancing does allow cars to get as low as possible. Because when you keep your tires upright, one of the biggest downsides is that even when you slam all the way to your fenders, your car is still gonna have some ground clearance, and how dare your car have any ground clearance? You need to be scraping on all the leaves you pass by, so you gotta stance it out and then slam it down even lower, brother. And then it also can make cars appear wider. younger enthusiasts will stance their car as a cheap way to appear wider, or if they already have a wide body kit, it could just be a way to get even wider. But that's the next entry on this list that I love and absolutely adore. I used to just kind of have an indifference to it, and I would say a very minor hate where some cars they didn't like that on, and that's wide body kits. I was never a fan of like Rocket Bunny NSXs because I just thought they ruined the car, and I still admittedly kind of am not really. I also don't like Liberty Walk GTRs or Liberty Walk Aventadors. At least that's what I would say, because I do now, brother. I'm a total sucker for wide body kits, and it came around the same time period where the THICC meme really grew, where like it even changed, like my taste in like thick things in general just completely changed, where like I used to just really like skinny, dainty things, and now I just actually enjoyed what it meant to have some, just, you know, presence and thickness and curviness especially. I think that's the most important part about having those thick fenders and the hips that really come out of the car. It increases the tumble home of a vehicle, which if you don't know what tumble home is, I'm just going to put a brief description on screen. If you're into boats, you'll know that tumble home is, you know, for automotive design, it's similar to what it means for the boat fuselage, but basically it allows your vehicle to have like more curviness, you know, actually have. And I think if you can afford a perfectly acceptable wide body kit, I actually think stance could sometimes ruin it. And today, that's a personal opinion that I have that I think people will be really upset with, because I see stance as like a cheap substitute to making your car wider. But if you can actually afford to make your car wider, I never really saw any reason to stance it to high hell. Like, you can still do like a few negative camber, because a very important idea of wide body kits and why they exist to begin with is to allow cars to fit thicker tires, especially for track cars. And when you stance it out, it comes off as like a driving triangle. It makes the car look like it's, here, I'll draw it so you guys see what I mean. That's what I mean. Whereas like if you just have like a regular wide body, look at this tumble home. Like I said, don't hate stance, don't love it though, but wide body kits, I certainly love them now. That was something I went from hating and not really understanding the culture behind to just completely backing and just being behind it. I think they're awesome. I think they're really cool. Let's go on before I just get really obsessed with saying the word thick all the time. And the fourth entry on this list is again something that's featured on my own car, which is just custom doors, whether it's scissor, suicide, butterfly, whatever the heck. Now, rice, baby, ha ha ha, blah blah blah. It's really easy to make fun of doors, which is why I did it. If you ever look at any of my dumb old thumbnails, ricers, or like non-car guys be like, it's always just a car of scissor doors. And it was really hypocritical looking back at that, because I would make fun of them without understanding really why people do them to begin with. Given I still think they look really ugly on certain cars, and I'm allowed to still hold that opinion, so I can still find them ugly on certain cars but not hate the idea of it in general, you know what I mean? Like 4-door vehicles, I'm sorry, y'all still look terrible with scissor doors. I'm just gonna put that out there. Y'all just can't pull it off. If you got 4 doors, you're better off doing suicide. I think 4-door like Chargers with suicide doors look freaking wicked. I got very used to that. There's some really nice builds of those in Atlanta. Chrysler 300Cs, same thing. I've seen some really nice suicide door builds of those. But scissor, 4-door, especially since it's not really the 4-door that bothers me, because I guess you could technically make all 4 doors go up, but it would still look wonky, because the beauty of the scissor is that it's kind of like an object piercing and pointing up towards the sky like a fighter jet. That's why Lamborghinis look so pretty with it. And that piercing look comes from having a bigger door. Coupes have much bigger door, or coupes for the European viewers watching. Those have bigger doors, like my Corvette has a really big doors, even my Mustang had decently big doors. But then the shape also comes into play. Why I think my Mustang or why a Challenger couldn't quite pull off scissor as well, they can still pull them off because like I said, they have big doors, so they pass that check. But they don't pass the second check, which is that they're too square shaped, so when they point upwards, it's really weird. You have like the square object. It doesn't have that piercing, striking look like a fighter jet would if it was more of a triangular shape or more curved or more just rounded off in general is what I'm trying to say. And that's why I think like when I look at Corvettes, it looks pretty nice. And fun fact, the reason why a lot of people keep saying, hey Bladed, why does the C7 Corvette doors, why do they not look that bad when they're pointed up? It's almost like the designers intended people to do this. And you're wrong and you're right. You're wrong in the sense that it's not that the designers intended people to do it, it's that the designers themselves did it. Fun fact, the C7 in its the actual running prototype, so like cars go concept first where they're drawing, then they become a shell car, then they become a prototype. It made it through the 3rd phase, and in the 3rd phase of the C7 prototype, it actually had vertical doors. Yep, you can Google it, you can look it up yourself, I'll put a picture of it on screen, but to be fair, they were more of a butterfly appearance as opposed to a scissor, but they were vertical doors. But I've had people who just hate scissor doors, hate everything about them, still still come up to my car and say something about this still looks weirdly well thought out. And that's not me to thank. I don't get any credit for that. It is because actual artists and designers that designed the C7 did at one point in time intend them to go up, which is why their geometry and overall design language has that suaveness and flow when they do go up. They don't look mismatched with the vehicle or imbalanced. The apex that the door hits when it's fully up matches the cabin location, and there's just so much mathematics involved into how they're pretty too. But before I blow up your brains with all this complicated jargon, let's talk about the simplest thing and the final entry of this video, which is just stickers. Especially sticker bombing. I used to really hate stickers. I thought they were just wannabe race car people. People are like, oh, look at how many sponsors I have, even though they just play Need for Speed probably and just got their mom to buy them their first Civic. But later on I learned I was just being way too hard on people for no reason. Back when I owned my Mustang GT, I obviously didn't mod it that much, and because I didn't mod it that much, and also living in a place like Indy where people don't really mod cars that much, and even when they do, they're met with a lot of hatred and a lot of cynicism. Moving to Atlanta, and more importantly, modding my own car, I learned that people just use stickers because you want to represent companies that have products that you've used that are on your vehicle. And every single mod that you buy comes with stickers with them. You buy a new diffuser, that company gave you a sticker. You bought a new louver, that company gave you a sticker. You bought a sticker, that sticker's gonna come with a sticker. Even performance mods like brake calipers or brake pads even will come with stickers. And that's when I realized that people are just kind of using them as like, if you ever have like a laptop and you buy like collector edition games or whatnot and you start putting those stickers on the back of your laptop, it's kind of like that. People are just showing off like, hey, I bought this, yeah, I have this, and it's a lot more nonchalant than I thought, because at the end of the day, it's just a tiny sticker on their window or on their bumper or wherever they put it, and I don't know why past me would look at it and just throw up about it, because it's just a freaking sticker, which to this day, I still don't like the visual appearance of stickers. I think having words on cars, aside from the badges, does take away from its look in such a weird, I can't explain why, but my brain doesn't like it. That's why to this day, like, that anime girl, that's it. That's all I can muster myself to do. I've tried putting other stickers on Leone, trust me, I have, and I just can't vibe with them. And I think when you can't vibe with a sticker, it's really hard to like them. But I do respect why others do it. Moving on to the more intense part of this entry, sticker bombing. Sticker bombing looks like crap, and guess what? I learned that's the point of it. Let's say it could be a myriad of reasons. You could be someone who just got in an accident, you could be someone who has a rusty fender, you could be someone who just bought a total crap box and the paint is mismatching in certain areas, and they just sticker bomb it. And when I learned the fun of it is kind of that it's supposed to look like crap, that you're supposed to find like a whole bunch of anime girls making like lewd faces and just smacking them all over your car, or sometimes it'll be like comic panels or manga panels or like memes. Like I've seen people do like, you know, the comic Lost, that meme. I've seen people like repeat that over and over with different variants, like of each different meme format of Lost, just as a sticker bomb on their car. And when I realized like the whole idea of sticker bombing is supposed to be a joke, then I realized that I wasn't getting the joke. No one sticker bombs a car to impress someone, so to speak. It's just done as an in-your-face type of dealio. And that comes off as like teenager attention seeking. But I think when you let yourself just have more fun with that ideology, you learn to appreciate it just a little bit more. And you can still ultimately look at it and say, that, you know, I think it's stupid, I think it's crap, which I do still think to this day, but I don't hate it. Other than that, if you're new here and you like car content, make sure to subscribe. But I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Bladed Angel out.